First Saturday night NBA slate of the season, and I'm here to take a look at the Stokastic NBA DFS lineup generator for that slate. In this video, I'm going to take a look at lineups for both DraftKings and FanDuel, combining them today due to time constraints. I'll start by taking a look at some DraftKings lineups, then I'll take a look at some FanDuel lineups. As always, I recommend looking at these lineups as close to lock as possible, particularly for NBA. You just get late breaking news all the time. Currently, we don't have a lot of great value, so I kind of think I'm hoping for some value to open up closer to lock. So I would recommend running the lineup generator close to lock, but we can get an idea of who is popping right now. A lot of the players popping now will still be great plays later on. It just might change the scope of the escape if we get different injury news. If you haven't already signed up for the lineup generator, you want to run it yourself closer to lock. It's typically just $14.95 per week. We're also running a discount, 20% off right now. If you use the link in the description of this video, it'll be about $12 for your first week. So nice little discount on an already great value tool. This is our cheapest offering at Stokastic. Really powerful tool because you're only getting long-term profitable lineups. All of these lineups have been run through the Stokastic Sims, bad lineups thrown out. Here you're only getting long-term profitable lineups. Let's take a look at some DraftKings lineups to start. And I'm going to do all lineups. We'll get a mix of chalky, balanced, and contrarian. If I do all lineups, I'm not going to lock anybody in. If somebody looks good enough to make it into all of our lineups, the lineup generator is just going to naturally give them to us in every lineup. All right. First lineup we see here, we got a couple Suns in it with Jordan Goodwin and Kevin Durant. A couple Cavs, Karis LeVert, Evan Mobley. Our lowest owned player here is OG Anunoby at 3.6% projected ownership. Everybody else fairly chalky in this lineup, 212% total ownership. You can see here, far chalky end of the spectrum. Everything is going to project well. You're not going to get anything that does not project well in the lineup generator, but a lot of chalkier, and then just the low-owned OG Anunoby in that first lineup. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Much lower ownership, 154% total ownership. I believe the last one was 212. Still projects for 281 fantasy points. You look at the ownership across the board, you don't have a ton of super low owned plays. You do have a lot of chalk still mixed in here, but then you've got a 2% owned Tyrese Maxey, a 7% owned Grayson Allen. So that's a nice thing about the lineup generator. It's going to give you lineups that are balanced out for you. All of these lineups are going to have some chalk in it because you're generally going to want some chalk in NBA DFS given how projectable it is, but it's still going to give you some nice value plays as well, some nice leverage plays mixed in with your chalk. So your lineups are going to project well and still have a shot of being, kind of unique enough to rise to the top. Here we're getting, still on the chalky end of the spectrum, but not the far chalky end of the spectrum. Still going to project really well. It looks like a nice lineup. Let's take a look at one more, and then I'm just going to go through and save, and we can look at our top exposures. Our third lineup back up over 200% total ownership, but we still have some low-owned components here, and Dennis Schroeder at 5%, Zach LaVine at 5%, and then kind of chalk across the board outside of those two. Chalky end of the spectrum, projects well, looks good. All right, let's go through and let's save all of our lineups, see what our exposures end up looking like. Just saving as many lineups. It looks like I'm getting some bonus lineups. Nice thing going on lately. You're supposed to only be able to save 20, but we've been allowing some bonus lineups lately. So I think we have 40 here if I save them all. Yep, 40 lineups. Kind of nice getting those bonus lineups. We got to 65% Karis LeVert, 50% Evan Mobley, 50% Donovan Mitchell, 47% Jordan Goodwin, 47% Marcus Smart, 47% Xavier Tillman, 45% Jaren Jackson Jr. So getting to a lot of Cavs, a lot of Grizzlies early in these runs. Again, you want to run close to lock because this might change later on. But let's take a look at why we're getting so much of Karis LeVert, Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, etc. So if I go into Fantasy Cruncher, I can kind of just look at the projections, and I'm sorted here by value. So these are our top point per dollar plays. We got to Karis LeVert, 51. We got to a good amount of Karis LeVert. So he's 5,100. We're projecting him for nearly 34 minutes and 33 fantasy points. So he's just a really nice point per dollar play. Makes sense that we would get to a good amount of Karis LeVert. As far as the Grizzlies guys, do we get to a lot of Xavier Tillman? I didn't. Yeah, so we got to 47% Xavier Tillman. He's only 5,300. We're projecting him for 32.3 minutes, nearly 34.5 fantasy points. So he's one of the best value plays on the slate. Dean Wade, I was a little bit concerned about the value here because we're projecting for 28 minutes, but still only projecting him for around 20 fantasy points. So he is a nice point per dollar value. Did we get too much? It doesn't look like we got to a ton. We got to, I guess, 17% Dean Wade is not nothing, but even though he is the best point per dollar play on the slate, you didn't necessarily need to go all the way down to the min price of Dean Wade. That's what we're seeing in our lineups. We didn't get to that min price all that often. We were kind of living in the mid range. A lot of plays from the Cavs, the Grizzlies making it in there. We have Luke Kennard is out for the Grizzlies. Jarrett Allen. Let's see, is it just Jarrett Allen who's out for Cleveland? Yes, we have Darius Garland also was out yesterday, out once again. So opens up some value plays when you got a couple of these starters out there for the Cavs. So it makes sense that Karis LeVert is going to project really well for us with both of those players out. Dean Wade, nice point per dollar play. Donovan Mitchell. What is the status of Donovan Mitchell? He's 9,500. That could obviously open up even more questionable for tonight's game with some left hamstring soreness. Okay. So it might get even better value on the Cavs. Again, that's why you want to run this as close to lock as possible. But already we've got a lot of nice value there on the Cavs, a lot of nice value on the Grizzlies with Conchar out. All right, let's take a look at some FanDuel lineups as well. Going to do all lineup types, not going to lock anybody. All right, first lineup on FanDuel projects for about 305 fantasy points, 186% total ownership. We got Tyrese Maxey at just 4% ownership, Mitchell Robinson at 8% ownership. Nobody else in single digits. Everybody else getting at least some ownership here. Desmond Bane, 11%. Zaire Williams, 26.5%. Jaren Jackson Jr., 49% projected ownership on FanDuel. That is nuts. But he racks up those stocks. Going to look pretty good on FanDuel. Evan Mobley up to 7,900, but still looks good. 41% projected ownership. So fairly, a lot of chalk in this lineup. But we do have some contrarian pieces, not on the contrarian end of the spectrum. Not on the far chalky end of the spectrum. We're kind of in the mid range here in terms of chalkiness of the lineup. Once again, it's going to project well. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Jalen Brunson at 8% ownership, Max Strus at 5%, John Conchar at 9% ownership, Dean Wade at 1.6%. We really did get to some really contrarian pieces here, but they're mixed in with some very heavy chalk here in Evan Mobley at 41%, JJJ at 49%, Zaire Williams, Kevin Durant, a lot of chalk in this lineup. Jordan Poole, a lot of players above 20% ownership mixed in with the players in single-digit ownership. Let's take a look at one more, and then we'll look at our exposures. So this one jumped to the chalky end of the spectrum, but we still have in here 1.6% owned Dean Wade. We still have 7.6% Mitchell Robinson mixed in with a good amount of chalk. Grayson Allen making it into over a third of lineups right now on FanDuel. Again, everything can flip once we have news breaking. If we get some stars out, maybe there'll be some better value later on. All right, let's take a look at our overall exposures, and then we'll look at why we're getting to those players on FanDuel. All right, so after saving 40 lineups? 40 lineups, we got to 62% John Conchar at 3.6K. So right near the min there on FanDuel. For Conchar, we got to 60% Donovan Mitchell, 47% Jaren Jackson Jr., 47% Evan Mobley, dropped down to 40% of Zaire Williams and Karis LeVert. So kind of a mix of, not anybody getting into too many of our lineups, but over 60% of Mitchell and Conchar. And if you look at FanDuel, why are we getting to so much Conchar, Mitchell, Jaren Jackson Jr., etc.? Let's sort by value on FanDuel. Conchar, our best value on the slate. We're projecting for 24 minutes, about 23 fantasy points at just 3,600. Zaire Williams, we're projecting for over 30 minutes, a little bit over 23 fantasy points. Jaren Jackson Jr., he's only 8,400. We're projecting for nearly 48 fantasy points in 32 minutes. A lot of volatility, as always, with Jaren Jackson Jr., foul trouble potentially, but the stock's potential certainly there. Donovan Mitchell, currently we have him listed as in. One of our better values, 5.6 value score there, projecting for nearly 56 fantasy points at 38.5 minutes. Evan Mobley up there in terms of value. Karis LeVert up there in terms of value. So a lot of these players that we're getting to a lot of are just some of the best point per dollar value plays on the entire slate. No huge shocks in terms of who we're getting to a lot of in our lineups on FanDuel. If you haven't already hit the like button, please hit the like button on this video. If you haven't already signed up for the lineup generator, I recommend signing up and running the lineup generator as close to lock as possible. The link is in the description of this video to get it for 20% off your first week. It'll be $12 for that first week, and then about $15 each subsequent week. Thanks for watching. Good luck.